We are here with a special guest, Hilery Hutchinson, and we are talking about Hilary's story of healing her autoimmune disease through working with past traumas and the subconscious mind. So, a little different talk today than we usually do, which is usually about food. So we can't wait to hear Hilary's story and kind of talk more about the subconscious and how to do this work. But before that, we're going to go into introductions if you're new to this community, and then Hilary will introduce herself. So I am Casey Kephart. I'm the founder of the Feel Good Formula. And I work with women with all different types of autoimmune diseases to get back to the activities you love to do, trash your symptoms, and basically get your life back. I am a functional medicine nutritionist, and I live in St. Petersburg, Florida, where the sun always shines. Jessica?
You bet. And I'm Jessica Melnick. I am the founder of the Anti-Arthritis Method, the host of the Happy Joints Arthritis Solutions Group. Sorry, can't talk today. And I am a registered holistic nutritionist, and I help both women and men get back to living life the way that they choose to, not the way that they have to.
Love that.
Great. I will pass it on to you. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Hilary.
My name's Hilery. I live in El Salvador, and we have a retreat center here. I am a wellness expert, and I've been in this industry for 20 years. So I have 58 certifications from personal training and yoga to nutrition and Ayurveda and massage and all the things. So I really focus on creating very customized plans for my clients based on all the knowledge I have and all the issues that they have and goals that they have. So
Love that. Love that you're so passionate about it too, and that you just keep digging deeper to help clients and learning more. I feel like we never stop learning, right? It is just always in process. So let's start with just you telling us your story from like what the autoimmune disease journey was for you, and then how you figured out to heal yourself.
Yeah. So my journey started with a flu bug, and I had like a 24-hour stomach bug just vomiting. And then 2 weeks later, I stood up from my desk and had no feeling in my right leg and ended up spraining my ankle. And a couple hours later, it spread to both legs. And my dog ended up waking me up in the middle of the night. It had gotten all the way up to my torso, my hands, and my arms. And I had no feeling. It was just all numb, but I could still move my arms and my left leg, but my right leg was kind of dragging. So I went to the hospital and found out I had Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is an autoimmune disease where the immune system gets confused and it eats the myelin coating off of your nerves. And so that was kind of the start of the nightmare. And during that time, I actually ended up being allergic to the treatment for it, and it killed all my white blood cells. So that kept me in the hospital even longer. And, I was a big traveler at that time. I was traveling all over the world, doing different programs and working with different boutique hotels or business people that wanted a personal trainer and massage therapist to travel with them. So my big concern was like, well, will I ever be able to travel again? Like, is this going to happen every time I get a flu bug? They're like, no, it only happens once. It's a one-time thing. 6 months later, I got the flu and it happened again. And so it was at that point where they told me it would be like a 4-year healing process because the myelin only grows back a millimeter per day. And so it's about 4 years to recover the entire body. So at that point, I just kind of trusted the doctors that there was nothing I could do to help and that the nervous system is the nervous system. And I was just going to have to be patient. And I was having like a ton of nerve pain at that time. I couldn't regulate my body temperature. So when it was freezing cold, I would be freezing cold. Like I could not get warm for hours and hours after going outside. About a year later, I went to Nicaragua to I teach Thai yoga massage certifications. So I went there to do that. And the heat, I couldn't regulate my body temperature there either. And so I ended getting up like all these heat blisters all over my hands. I'd wake up every morning at like 2 a.m. and it was like all the heat was trying to leave my body through my hands and my feet. And so it was a long process of like trying to heal the nervous system. And when I got back from Nicaragua, I started having severe bone pain. And all of a sudden I was limping. And the bone pain would move every single day. It was like in my fingers one day, in my back one day, in my hip one day, in my ankle one day. And I was just like, I think this is Lyme disease. And so I went to the doctor, I got tested. They're like, nope, you're negative. I was like, okay, what's the next solution? And they're like, well, we can send you to like a rheumatologist and see if there's anything going on. And they're like, no, it's just related to Guillain-Barré syndrome. And I'm like, no, like this is totally different. I can't even go up and down stairs without holding onto the hand railing. And so at that point, they sent me. I went to a functional medicine doctor because I was like, I know there's something going on. And with that, I found out that I did have Lyme, Babesia, and Ehrlichia, which are all tick-borne diseases. And so now, on top of healing from the Guillain-Barré syndrome, I also had these tick-borne illnesses. The medication they put me on ended up creating a severe reaction in my body, and I started having seizures and convulsions and became paralyzed in my right leg again. So I ended up back in the hospital, and they said I had functional neurological disorder, where your brain, there's nothing wrong structurally, but it's sending the wrong signals to the rest of your body. So at that point, my doctor was like, I think there's something in your subconscious like blocking your healing.
Was this the functional medicine doctor that said that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And my doctors were at war. The neurologist at the hospital told me to stop everything I was doing with the functional medicine doctor. And then the functional medicine doctor was telling me that the neurologist had it all wrong. And so some days I'd have both appointments in the same day and go from one to the other. And I was like, I feel like I have to put my life in one hand or the other, and I don't know who to trust.
Yeah.
And I just kept having severe reactions to everything that he tried with me. And so I didn't really know what to do about the subconscious. And he was like, well, you could go to like, silent meditation retreat for like the Vipassana retreat. So I started looking those up, and it was like 6 months to a 1-year wait list to get in. And I really didn't know what the benefit was or like how that was going to help me heal. So I just kind of kept on the path of like trying to fix my nutrition, trying to make sure I wasn't doing anything like gluten-free, dairy-free. What do I need to change, in my lifestyle that could be contributing to these issues? And I really kept trying everything, acupuncture and all these different treatments, and nothing worked. And most things made me even worse. And so it was kind of at that point where I was like, I don't know what to do. And one of my mentors invited me to another certification for aromatherapy for medical conditions. And in that training, one of the protocols was for forgiveness. And in that protocol, they were like, if all else fails, do the forgiveness protocol. And so that kind of planted the seed in my head of like, maybe there's something there. It's like an emotional wound that I need to deal with. And so from that, I didn't even know where to begin, but I was just like, I'm just going to let my intuition guide me. I'm going to do the forgiveness protocol when I get home and just see what happens. And I ended up healing like this argument I had with my dad when I was 12. And all of a sudden the next day, like I woke up and I looked myself in the eyes in the mirror for the first time. And I'd never really done that before. It was always kind of like the mirror was to make sure my teeth were clean and to get out the door. Like it wasn't anything I was deeply looking into my eyes. And I thought that was just because I'm not really into looks. I think it's what's on the inside that counts.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until that moment where I realized like I was carrying around so much guilt for over 20 years that I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. And so after that, I started like moisturizing my body, and I was like, wait, I don't moisturize. Like all of a sudden, I'm practicing self care effortlessly. And so at that point, I kind of realized that forgiveness was underneath it all in some point, some element of it, but it didn't really change anything with my health. And so now I was practicing self care and like really doing better job with setting boundaries and not people pleasing as much. But
Mhm.
I still was, and there was still more work to do. So my doctor told me every week do the forgiveness protocol for something else. And so I just got to town like every week trying to tackle the past and do more and more. And then the pandemic hit, and I was like, oh wow, this is what I really need. Like now I can practice self-care nonstop. Like there's there's no running around to clients' houses. There's
I
no
love
like
the silver lining.
things, right? I was like, I know I'm gonna heal during the pandemic. Like this is it. And I got worse.
Oh.
And during that time, I developed. Oh, that was the other thing. After the hospital, my doctor said the reason my body reacted that way could also be from heavy metals or mold toxicity. And I was like,
Mm.
no way. Like I've been living an organic lifestyle for a decade now. Like there's no way I'm full of toxins. He's like,
Mhm.
do the test and find out for sure. And I had 4 mycotoxins and 5 heavy metal poisonings. And so at that was at the beginning of the pandemic. I was also trying to like detox my body, and all the detoxes were making me worse. And I developed POTS. And so then I was like doing my self care, sitting in meditation, and my heart rate would be 190 beats per minute. And so
Oh
I
my God.
couldn't meditate anymore. And so then it was impacting like the self care that I could do, because I couldn't even sit up, I couldn't stand up, I couldn't do yoga, I couldn't meditate. Like it was just a huge obstacle.
Mhm.
And so I started reading a lot more about the subconscious mind and healing, and starting to watch documentaries and diving down the rabbit hole. And once I started to put everything I learned into practice is when I actually started to heal. And once I really applied the knowledge, it was only about a month before I was back on my feet. No more seizures, no more convulsions, no more bone pain, no more night sweats, nothing. Like symptom free. And it was like a month of kind of strengthening my body to get back to the point where I wasn't being punished by it, of like fatigue and trying to
Mhm.
just the muscular strength and endurance to get through the day. And then after that, I was fine.
A
And
month. Like
yeah,
that's so
after
little time.
5 years of trying
Right.
everything, it was like a month, and that was it.
Wow. That's an
So
incredible story.
I still didn't believe it after that. Like it was almost a year where I wasn't surprised in the morning that I was healthy. Like I'd wake up every morning and just be like, am I still okay?
Yeah.
Waiting
Right.
for symptoms.
It's like you're in shock. You're like, what the
Yeah.
heck just happened? After 5 years now I feel okay.
Totally. And
So
it was one of those things that the Babesia parasite from ticks is considered incurable. It's in your
yeah,
red blood cells. So once that seed was planted, it always became a question of, well, what makes me think I'm so great I can heal an incurable disease?
right.
So
It
there's
defines
a
you.
battle in my mind of like, autoimmune, am I stuck with it for life? Am I going to be degenerating from all these things, or is there some way I can beat this? And
Yeah.
so that was always my mindset of like, there's some whisper that was like, you can do this, you're going to figure it out. But then there's that other, like the devil on my shoulder saying, what makes you think you're going to figure this out?
That
So
word incurable, I think, is so inhibiting for the medical system in general, because as we know, the autoimmune disease is called the incurable disease. You just have
yeah,
to live with it for the rest of your life. you don't need to suffer with it for the rest of your life. But when you put the incurable word in front of that basically tells everybody you're going to have to live this way and feel this way for the rest of your life. And that seeps down into our subconscious, right? And that's something
Yeah.
that we need to work on to get past. So tell us more. I think we're also intrigued by your story right now, and we're like, we just want more about how you healed. So tell us, for people who don't know about the subconscious, just basically what that is in general.
Yeah. So the subconscious mind is our mind that's underneath the conscious mind. And it is basically dictating 90 to 95% of your thoughts every day. So the interesting thing about it is that it's not rational or logical. And so it's more emotional. It's the creative mind. It's our beliefs. It's our personality. So it's not the decision making mind that you're like setting goals and creating plans and all of that. It's more what's underneath it all. And so the way the subconscious mind kind of becomes formed is just connecting the dots on its own. And that's why it can get kind of wired in the wrong way, that we have limiting beliefs, we have that loud inner critic, and we, operate off of triggers and do things that we don't really want to do. Or, when we try to set a new habit, it's really hard to break the old habit because it's so wired into the subconscious that's where your habits live. So when you're on autopilot, you're operating from your subconscious, not your conscious.
Yeah. So what did you do to start working on your subconscious mind?
One of the first books I read about it was Feelings Buried Alive Never Die. And then in that one in the back, it actually has every single like symptom and the subconscious meaning underneath it. And so that started to help me understand what I needed to work on. And then from there, I watched Joe Dispenza's docu-series called Rewired, which is all about how to rewire your subconscious mind. And when I was watching it, he has so many stories of people that have healed incurable diseases through his program, like Parkinson's disease and multiple sclerosis and all of these things. And I was like, wow, it just kept planting seeds of hope instead of those poisonous seeds of it's incurable. And so I ended up watching like each episode of that docuseries like 12 to 16 times because I just wanted to really integrate it and embody it before I move on to the next lesson.
Yeah.
And so that was really watching that docuseries really was where it all started to shift. And I realized a major part of it is your belief system. And by not believing I could heal and questioning it, I would never heal.
Yeah.
I had to fully 100% believe that I could do it. And one of the exercises he really recommends is visualizing yourself in the future with all five senses. So I started visualizing myself super healthy, running on a beach. I didn't know where it was. And it was kind of weird because I've lived all over the world and I didn't know what beach I was running on, but I was picturing, like the wind blowing and feeling the sweat and just feeling that vitality and energy and joy, and listening to the waves and the birds and like really just embodying that visualization every day. And I realized at that point that my dad had brain cancer when I was 6. And at that point, he was given 6 months to live. And he promised to see me graduate from high school. And he did. And I have a letter from his doctor that kind of says, like, we don't know why he's alive, but he's very stubborn and determined. And so I kind of connected the dots at that point and was like, I bet this is what he did. Like he visualized himself in the future, like seeing me graduate. He didn't have any tools in his toolbox. He didn't have all these mental health experts and wellness experts to help him. Like he was just stubborn and determined. And if he believed he could live 15 years, or well, I guess I was 12 years instead of 6 months, then I can beat this. And so that was the moment like my belief system shifted and I was 100% certain that I could pull it off and do it, and just really got to work on kind of changing some of my boundaries and habits and different things. And that's when it all changed.
I have goosebumps when you said about your dad and him being able to do that. And
Yeah.
wow, incredible. So, what is your kind of daily habit now to keep this routine going, or do you still do work on your subconscious?
Yes, I have learned that the healing journey is never really done.
Yep.
I know that I hate to say that because it can make it seem so daunting that like you're never going to
Yeah.
be finished. But what I've realized is like when you go back and heal something in the past, there's a lot of layers to healing. So maybe you went in and forgave another person in the past, but you didn't forgive yourself yet. So then
Mhm.
when you forgive yourself and heal that aspect, then there may be something else about it that pops up. So it's kind of like the work is never really done. You're always kind of working on the subconscious, tapping into your limiting beliefs, tuning
Mhm.
into the inner critic and saying, well, why is that going on? And like that has no benefit to me. It's trying to protect me in some way. What's it trying to protect me from?
Yeah.
And so it was that journey that helped me realize that we're not really taught about forgiveness. And essentially, if you look back on the past and feel any emotional charge to something, then you haven't forgiven it.
Mm.
And that was kind of a pivotal lesson that was like, okay, anything that I feel emotional in the past, I need to go back and look at that and see where the healing needs to happen. So now it's kind of more things just rise to the surface. I don't actively go looking for things. It's like
Mhm.
something just kind of pops up and I'm like, "Oh, I need to work on that. Like what can I do to kind of." And a lot of it's just mindfulness, it's journaling, it's meditations, it's just going through kind of inner child healing and seeing what that inner child needed in those moments of time that
Mhm.
it didn't get, and now giving it to them, as your adult
Yeah.
self and saying, it's okay.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a different type of healing work than we're focused on in the autoimmune world. But I think that is the problem, that because our physical body is crying, that's what we try to pay attention to. We're hyper focused on the physical body and the chronic illness world. And sometimes these issues pop up as a divine storm to get you to heal the spiritual body,
Mhm.
not the physical body. And
Yeah.
so I think it is up to us to look at that mind body spirit connection and try to find
Mhm.
answers on different levels. And I think wherever you have resistance, that's
Yeah.
where the answers may lie. So if you're like, I don't have any work to do, I'm good, then
You have a lot of work to do in that case.
and
Yeah.
when you read something about someone healing spontaneously like I did, then and that triggers you and you're like, that's not even possible, then there is healing work to do around it. It is a matter of questioning your own beliefs, and there are so many radical remissions and spontaneous healing stories that
Mhm.
if that was the content you followed on social media versus the I'm chronically ill, life sucks, everybody sucks, I hate this, then it's
Mhm.
two totally different mindsets.
Yeah.
And we really are, humans are the only animal on this planet that can alter their physiology with their thoughts. And so we have to take advantage of that.
100%. And when you said like the healing journey is never over, and it sounds daunting, it does, but at least in my experience, I've learned to really like my healing journey and like what I do for my self care and look forward to it because it makes me feel good. So if you're dreading, what you're doing every day for your healing and you don't want to do it, I would say switch it up. I would say find something that you enjoy, because if you dread your self-care, is that self-care anymore at that point?
No.
Because right, it's like inside of you now of dread and anxiousness, and that's just going to hurt you even more.
Yeah. For me, the meaning of self care is really just honoring what you need in that moment of like,
Mm-hmm.
what would make me feel good right now? And then going and doing it.
Yeah.
I think that's why sometimes it looks different to everyone. And like, you know, if you get to that point on your healing journey where you're just like, oh my God, I can't do another meditation, I don't want to deal with this, then your self care is not doing it.
Mhm.
It's honoring
Exactly.
that and just saying, okay, I need a break from all the healing stuff. I'm going to just watch a movie and zone out, but
Hmm. Yeah.
not doing that all the time. Knowing the difference between honoring your own needs and escaping your own feelings.
Hmm.
I
Definitely.
I think so many times we like it's almost like we shame ourselves if we don't want to do the things that we think that we should be doing. Like I know
Yeah.
for me, I do not enjoy meditation. Like the thought of having to take time to meditate stresses me out, so I don't do it. But I've always been waffling between feeling bad about that and then being like, no, 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 it's okay. I do other things. So I think
Mhm.
just giving ourselves that permission to choose what type of self-care and healing that we want to do that like resonates with us is much better than trying to force ourselves to do something that we just don't want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hillary, you keep mentioning the forgiveness, and I can't remember if you said it in the beginning, but for people who want to know, like myself, what is this forgiveness meditation or practice that you do? Where can people find it or more information?
The one I'm doing is from the training that I went to. So that one is done with aromatherapy oils, like with essential
Mm-hmm.
oils. I kind of made it my own thing by following like a script out of a book that's about like replacing your negative feeling with a positive one. And I just find forgiveness is different for everyone. So I really think we all have to find our own rituals around forgiveness. I don't think that one is like the ultimate one. Essential oils are just great because it's like every little hair in your nostril is linked to different smells, and so when you smell a specific smell, different little hairs light up, and it's like a key in a
Mm-hmm.
lock. So sometimes using different oils will unlock different memories, and so it can help you tap into different emotions and things like that. So it's a tool, but it's not essential to
Yeah.
forgive, right? So it's really just finding, how do you need to forgive and who do you need to forgive is more important of like, because I think a lot of people don't even know where to begin. They're like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
So sometimes I think going in and finding the subconscious connection with your illness and understanding that can plant the seeds of like, oh, that's what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So for like all autoimmune disease has one thing in common in the subconscious, and it's laughing on the outside and crying on the inside. And so it's people pleasing. And when you look at autoimmune disease, I think it's like 80% is women.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Who does all the people pleasing?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
How great.
Yeah. Not
And
saying men
they're
don't people please, but it's a lot more women than men.
yeah, and men still get autoimmune, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the ones that do probably still have that trait. And the other common bond I found throughout almost all illnesses is the suppressing anger. And I think most of us are taught at a young age, like it's not good
Yeah.
to be angry, right? So we just kind of swallow it down and suppress it. But the body gets to the point where it says enough is enough and it's
Mm-hmm.
literally attacking itself. It's creating a war inside your body because
Yeah.
you've suppressed things for so long.
Yeah.
And so it is, about honoring your own needs and not suppressing your own needs and desires, not suppressing your own voice. And so there are different methods to go about that. So like the book I mentioned, Feelings Buried Alive Never Die, does have a glossary in the back of all the the subconscious roots. And Louise Hay's book, Heal Yourself, also
Mhm.
does the same thing. And she gives you like affirmations that can help change the subconscious wiring. Um, so the other system is the chakra system in yoga, and that's more about energetics. And so that with each chakra, there's associated diseases with it. And where that chakra forms in your life, like the root chakra forms when you're born till you're 7 years old. So reflecting on that time period, if you have a lower body related issue, can help you figure out where kind of the original trauma might have been.
Mhm.
So there's different ways, but
Yeah.
I think different systems resonate with different people, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And there's no one right way. And I know, Hillary, you and I have talked about like it's not just lifestyle healing. You need to do like the food with it as well. Like you said, you've had an
Yeah,
organic diet for the past 10 years. Like if you were eating, for lack of a better word, shit food during this journey, like it would take more than just your subconscious mind to help heal this
yeah,
for you. You can't keep putting in inflammatory foods to and act like it's all going to be okay. So there's a lot of different steps in healing an autoimmune journey, and they're all going to be different. But I think the two main steps is a lifestyle approach, like you did with
yeah,
the subconscious mind and stress management and all of that. And then it's the food that you're putting into your body. And there's, not one right way for that either. It's very open as well because we're all different and individualized and have different
yeah,
biochemistry.
yeah. That's why I think it is a mind, body, spirit. You know, like we
Mm-hmm.
have to honor that we have all three parts. We're not just one.
Mm-hmm.
So it is about like, tapping into like, what am I ignoring?
Yeah.
And what am I not doing to heal? Am I avoiding the mindset work? Am I avoiding the exercise and eating right and taking supplements or whatever that part of it is? I think, it's important to experiment with kind of everything and being willing to try so you can figure it out. Because I think it's true, like everyone's different and some things are genetic. And if it's genetic, then it's not going to heal through the subconscious, most likely. Um, I think people still do that because multiple sclerosis and Parkinson's are genetic, and people have healed from those. But I think for the most part, a lot of things we need to acknowledge that it can be a physical illness. I'm not saying
Mhm.
everything's up in your head, but I do think it's the difference between Lyme disease and chronic Lyme disease. I think it's the difference between COVID and long haul COVID.
Yeah.
So I think we have to like tap into those things and say, okay, when are we taught to do subconscious work? When are we taught to process our emotions?
Right.
So,
And I think that leads us to like the last question here is
yeah.
so everybody who's watching this might have this question of like, how do I know if I need to dig deeper? Like, what are some signs or telling ways maybe you should look more inward to heal?
Um, well, symptom wise, if your symptoms are fluctuating on a daily basis, that's a sign that it's subconscious and not physical. Um, Unless it's diet related, right?
Right.
But
It could
if
be
you have
both.
your nutrition figured out and you're still having good days and bad days, then generally it's related to stress levels in the subconscious. And in order to kind of know, it is about, when you're triggered. If you're getting triggered by things, then there's healing to do underneath it. If you're
Mhm.
being hypercritical, if you're angry and frustrated, if you're feeling alone and isolated, all of those things play into your health and well-being and affect the and are actually coming from the subconscious.
Mhm.
I know a lot of people tell me like how alone and isolated they feel, and I'm like, well, have you reached out to anyone in your circle? It's like how much of that is in your mind and how much of it truly is reality.
Mhm.
So it's kind of questioning yourself, I think, and saying, all right, like, what is going on in my mind today, and
Mm-hmm.
labeling things. Like, you can label all the parts in your head,
Yeah.
the hypercritical part, the judgmental part, the sabotage, the hyperachiever, the people pleaser, like being able to connect with those, and looking for what's underneath it all. Because if you haven't looked at what's underneath it, then you know there's subconscious healing to do.
Yeah. I like how you just said labeling too. And there's a super good book by Brene Brown called Atlas of the Heart. It's her newest one. And it's a whole book just about what each emotion is and what it means and how do you identify it. And she said the top three emotions from their surveys that she did was anger or sad, happy, and angry.
Yeah,
That's how we know how to identify our feelings are those three words
those
usually.
three. There's like 27 emotions, I think.
I can't remember, but there's a lot more than three. And
Yeah,
it's so it opens up this whole new world and a whole new door
yeah,
of how to identify, because once we can identify our feelings, we can now start to maybe heal our feelings or work
yeah.
towards shifting them a bit.
And
Um,
knowing feelings, what is the first word? Feel.
mm,
So if we don't allow ourselves to feel our feelings, then
yeah.
they're just going to get buried underneath it all and like start to fester and eat at us. And
Hmm.
knowing that emotions only last for about 90 seconds. If you allow yourself to actually emote and feel that fully, then it will move
Hmm.
through. It's energy in motion, emotion. So by suppressing things all the time, that is why we have so much work to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Another good book on suppressing is Dopamine Nation. How we
I
always just
haven't read that
go,
yet.
oh, it's
I need to read
amazing.
that.
It's how we always just need that dopamine boost instead of just really just looking inward and focusing on ourselves and healing ourselves with subconscious or thoughts or things, but we instead pick for social media or drugs, alcohol, pastries, sex,
Yeah.
whatever it is. We always need that constant dopamine boost. So that just shows us we can't just feel the feels at all. And we're all guilty of it in some way, in some form, some
Yeah.
better than others, of course, but it's still doing the same premise. So,
We
and I
have a
think that
culture of
comes,
escapism.
yeah, exactly. And that comes from our role models growing up and TV and the news and
Yeah,
friends,
I've
family,
asked my mom
friends.
about that, and she's like, well, we were just raised to keep busy. If you keep busy, then you won't, your feelings, will
Yeah,
dissipate.
yeah.
Well, and I think
I'm,
so many people are terrified of feeling their feelings because it's almost like subconsciously we think that we're gonna die if we feel grief or if we feel sadness. You know,
yes.
like having those feelings is dangerous and it's physically going to hurt us somehow, where it's actually having the opposite effect on us.
Yeah, it gives you peace of mind and makes you
Mhm.
feel so much lighter and clearer. And I think that's one of the questions I ask so many people is like, why do you avoid your feelings? Why have you avoided healing the
Mhm.
past? And nobody ever has a good answer.
Right.
Like, I'm
Yeah.
still trying to find.
Because it's scary.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
why? Why is
Right.
it scary?
Right. And that might
But
just be a paradigm we've all made in our heads because that's what
yeah,
we've heard in the past. Looking inward is scary. It's emotional, but like you're saying, why?
yeah,
When on the other side of it is freedom and a healthier lifestyle. And why is crying scary? Why? I think
yeah,
it's the fight or flight that we have, and like because we're mammals, right? Maybe that adrenaline is scary, and that's what our
yeah,
paradigm says.
yeah. And that was one of the interesting things in Joe Dispenza's docuseries is that fight or flight. That
Mhm.
we every animal is trained for fight or flight, but for 15 minutes. And humans, from the
Right.
moment you
Not
wake up in
20
the morning
years.
till the moment you go to bed at night, your phone's dinging, it's calling, there's traffic, there's this email and that email. And it's like we are constantly in fight or flight. And stress is connected to all illness. So
Yeah.
it is about regulating the nervous system too, and keeping mind, body, and spirit all as healthy as possible.
Yeah. No, I think that's the whole point, and this has been such a fascinating conversation, Hillary. I know I'm going to listen to this at least once or twice more on the replay, just because you have gave us so many amazing nuggets of wisdom and things to try, and lots of food for thought.
Yeah, I have a blog post I can share with you guys that has like the top few books I recommend for this type of
Perfect.
healing.
Yeah.
So I'll share that.
Yeah, and I'll post it in the comments here. Same with Jessica. Can you tell everybody how to get a hold of you and kind of what you do in your work, how it works
Yeah.
with you?
My website is healingwithhilary.com. I will include a link because my name's spelled funny. And I bring people here for retreats to work with people one-on-one. And I also work with people online. And I tend to do a combination. I have an online program, and that's a 12-week course. But I find with the healing, it's really good to have that weekly check in and support and guidance. And where there's so much content in the course, it can be confusing on like what you need to tackle first. So I do combine it with private coaching or group coaching too. So yeah, that's about all I do in this little bubble.
Awesome. We will post the links. Send that to me when you get the chance, Hillary. And then if anybody has any questions, please put them. Actually, it does look like we have a comment.
Yes, we do. From Andre.
Thanks, Andre.
Great exploration of the power of the mind, most definitely. Thank you so much, Hillary. We so appreciated this, as does everybody else. If anybody has any comments, please put them below and we will direct you in the right way. In other news, we will be back on Thursday talking about routines again, more of your nighttime routine other than your morning routine, which we talked about last week. So everybody have a good Tuesday, and we'll talk to you later.
Thank you, Hillary.
You're welcome. My pleasure.